r/AskReddit. What screams I'm very insecure? When you question yourself, do they actually like me, or are they pretending to? Or when you think you're gonna bother other people if you talk to them. Edit. Jesus Christ. I wasn't expecting so many replies. I hope you all are doing great. In college I had a friend who seemed to believe that everyone in our friend group was just pretending to like him, or just tolerating him. He seemed to believe this because occasionally he would pick up on subtle signs of irritation towards him. What he didn't understand is that even if you are good friends with everyone in a group, that doesn't mean that no one in the group will find you annoying from time to time. Just for him, one day I pulled him aside and got out a pen and paper. I created what I called the tilt web. I wrote everyone in this friend group's name on the paper, forming a circle of names. Then I proceeded to draw arrows between names. I said each arrow represents that the person who the arrow is pointing to is sometimes slightly annoyed by the person the arrow is drawn from. All 10 people on the group, except one, had at least one arrow to and at least one arrow from them. The problem with this kind of insecurity is that they won't believe someone if they are simply told that they are fine. They understand that if someone doesn't really care about them, it's still a lot easier to tell them that they are fine, even if they aren't. Now that we have both graduated, he mentioned that he hasn't forgotten me drawing that web, and that it was a lot more meaningful to him than me just telling him that he is fine. I'm in this post and I don't like it. This is a self-roast, but I think I degrade myself just to hear others deny it. Is that insecure? I do this, and I definitely think it comes from a desire to get ahead of it. Like, if I put myself down first, then how badly can it hurt if someone agrees? It's created a cycle of almost compulsive negative self-talk that I'm trying to deprogram. You crafty son of a gun, that's what you're doing right now. Fishing for compliments is definitely an insecurity, but it can also stem from being a perfectionist and expecting too much out of yourself. In my experience, I don't even notice sometimes when it comes off as an insecurity, because in my mind I just have too high expectations. If you're okay with them agreeing with you, I'd say it's not. Automatically assuming negative intent. Egg. You friend didn't pick your call? Duck her. She's trying to avoid me. I don't care about her anyway. Had a friend who, while I took a nap, texted me. I noticed you didn't share your chocolate bar with me at lunch. Are you mad at me? Are we even friends anymore? 2 hours later, I guess I have my answer. I'm this but more back. Oh god, she hates me. What did I do? YJS, she mad at me. Maybe I should just proactively apologize for existing, but then that might make her hate me more. Holy shit, thank you for putting this into words. Constantly wedging humble bragging into conversations. I had a hard time with that when I was at Harvard. I hate this. Just the other day, a friend was rambling incessantly about their brand new car. I'm like, dude, I just want to buy these monster condoms for my Magnum dung in peace. This one is so frustrating. My coworker does this about 1,000,000 times a day. I know the square footage of her house, the price of the car she drives, how much money she makes from her side business, etc. The worst part is when she puts down the salary we both make and says that's not even half of what she earns from her side business and how it's not a living wage and stuff. I'm always like, girl, why are you here then? I mostly see this at work. People who are in upper management and treat people like garbage just because they can. Being unnecessarily mean, rude or bitter to people. Treating new employees like garbage just because you're threatened they might take your job someday. I learned that the best way to get to know someone was to give them power and see what they do with it. Used this technique before promoting people. I would give them a project and put them in charge to see how they worked with the people under them. If they were assholes, I could address it. If they did well, I could promote them. I got this at one of my jobs. Everyone knew she was lazy and that I, as her partner, and in her eyes, subordinate was pulling nearly all the weight for the operation. I have little insecurities of my own that she likes to manipulate, as I only found out after the following incident that she would say, "Oh, well, I'll just let the other boys do it," to get me to lift more objects when I needed a break. I wasn't the only one she bullied. I had some emotional issues one day and she blew them out of proportion to get me fired. It ended up backfiring on her. I think micromanaging screams insecurity as well. They don't believe in themselves to look good, so they try to control every detail of the job outcomes. Trying to dominate conversations, not to be confused with just being a charismatic person. I know a guy who will talk forever, on and on about something that may or may not be interesting to anyone but him in the first place. If anyone has something else to say that leads to a small tangent or participation of other people in the room, he becomes visibly annoyed and will bring it back with an anyway at the earliest opportunity and continue ranting. I don't like him. Edit. A lot of people are saying that they feel like they are this person. Just to clarify, it's not just the fact that he talks a lot and tends to be ranty that annoys me. Some people just have very active brains and sort of runaway thought patterns, if you will, and I get that. It's the fact that he seems offended that anyone would dare steal his conversation spotlight and want to participate that screams insecurity. I have a coworker who does this daily, like to the point where she will raise her voice to an embarrassing volume just to get her point across. Also, she'll do this to cut someone off because she's already thought of a response before the other person has finished talking. When people have and insist on constantly checking on their so via some tracking app on their phone, it's one thing to have it and use it in case of emergency, but using it while out with your friends to make sure he's actually at work is creepy and super insecure. I trail run my boyfriend mountain bikes. We often go solo, especially when we are training for an event. Thanks for mentioning the emergency bit. When I mentioned we share locations, people get weirded out and call us stalkers. But the one time I have an emergency, I don't want it to be the time I forgot to turn it on. It was super handy this weekend when we were at the Baltimore Running Festival. Made it super easy to find each other after our events, since the cell network was overloaded and calls were going right to voicemail. These apps need a feature that tells you who checked up on you. The Norway model. You can check your neighbor's tax returns, but in turn he knows that you checked up on him. I found that a lot of people on Twitter that feel the need to post about how great of a person they are, and they have nothing but good intentions, are usually the most toxic people I've seen. It's like they're trying to convince themselves. I also notice that the things they write about themselves are the kind of things you should let other people say about you. It's just tacky. Being nice is a trait you can't give yourself. You can recognize it, but the unspoken rule is that you don't mention it. If you have to tell people that you possess X personality trait, then you almost certainly lack it. I used to be very insecure, so I'll go from my own experience. Lying about something to seem cool. It's very obviously a signal of insecurity, because they don't like who they are now. I have a brother who does this. He's so insecure about whether people see him as an idiot that he's getting his PhD so he can officially be the smartest person in the room wherever he goes. Almost verbatim. Dude lies pathologically about the dumbest shit. I used to be this way. I got it from my mother. It evolved into pathological lying, where I would get so invested in a lie that I would eventually end up believing it, and it would become my reality. In hindsight, that shit is horrifying. It's a serious mental disorder. A decade of therapy later, I snapped out of it and realized that I was acting like a ducking wet wipe on a regular basis and cut that shit out. Lifestyle creep. Constant fishing for compliments when around people. Egg. I'm so chunky is a direct way to get someone to tell you that you look great. I've always found that you're not fat. thing to be weirdly insecure as well. I don't understand how it's considered nice to correct someone when talking about their own body if they are talking about it openly. X. It was hard to find this in 2x. Oh yeah, I struggle with that style because of my size, and then the other person insists you're super small and not at all fat. How should you respond when people say things like this? Just not shutting up about yourself. Constantly lifting yourself up and comparing yourself to others while pushing them down. Also, constantly putting yourself down and comparing yourself to others. There's a guy I work with who's like this. He has to get on a soapbox and tell everyone how awesome he is because he knows so much about IPA microbrews. I've realized homeboy has the unique superpower of making beer sound like the most boring thing in the world. Or those people who post on Facebook those quotes that are like, "Don't worry about those who talk behind your back, they're behind you for a reason." Or they tag themselves into any and every place including the docs/hospital/somewhere personal. Then when someone asks if they're okay they reply with, "Don't ask Hunzucks." So basically, people who live their lives through very active social medias, I suppose I'm trying to say. Eater as of Monday 12:25 US Eastern Time. To add some details/clarification. I get using it to inform people or to socialize if one's sick. Or to look for emotional support. That's probably a lot easier than calling a bunch of people. It gets weird when they then want privacy after posting it on social media. Or when they're asking friends for medical advice on urgent/emergency situations when they have good health insurance. Original post. I've always thought the hospital thing especially weird. Also weird, I have symptom of something which may require an ER or urgent care visit. What should I do? Maybe go to the ER or urgent care? These are people with health insurance, mind you. I can see posting to see if anyone else has had X symptom or condition. Or what questions to ask your doctor. So basically, the kind of people who constantly talk about haters. People who always have to one-up you in everything. If you tell a story they have a better one. If you buy something expensive they have to be something even more expensive. Some people's whole life is trying to win some non-existent competition. Those are the same type of people who go $75,000 into debt just to impress the neighbors who don't give a shit anyways. My brother and I hung out with a guy for a while who was the absolutely king of one-upping people. It got to the point where we would make up slightly unbelievable stories to see how he would one-up them. Here's some of the gems he presented us. His father competed in an underground street fighting league with a titanium leg. He once watched a man get hit in the face with a severed penis, and he shot a metal target 100 yards away, blindfolded, judging its location from the sound of someone else shooting the target. Clarification on the flying dick. So, he claimed to have been an EMT for a year, which didn't seem possible with the timeline of his life, but that's beside the point, and he drew a lot of his stories from his EMT days. One day, he says, he's working with a guy who's been an EMT for 30 years. They get a call about some domestic violence, so they head to the house, where the police are already inside. Our friend says he stepped into the house ahead of the veteran EMT, and he was greeted by a screaming woman waving a severed penis at the two police officers already inside. As soon as she saw him, she hurled the cock right at his head, and he ducked out of the way. The airborne penis flew through the threshold of the door, striking his EMT partner in the face. The man looked down at the bloody dick on the ground, looked up at our friend, the police, and the still screaming woman, threw up his hands, and yelled "That's it, I ducking quit," and turned around and walked off. He said he never saw him again. Bragging about things not even in your control, like your parents' wealth. Even worse, I have a friend who likes to brag to girls at the bar about how successful our other friend is, because his parents have a successful business that he is taking over. Super cringy. Man, I brag about my depression all the time. You've reached the end. You're a star. Destroy the subscribe button for more like that.